Okay. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. So let's go ahead and do this. Just let me know in the comments that you can hear everything correctly and everything sounds good to go. Okay. All right. So let's give you some updates on everything that's going on. Cool. Everybody sounds good. Sorry for the delay. There's a little bit of a delay between my stream and when I can hear you. So let's talk about everything that's happening right now. As of last night, there have been some updates in the race. So Joe Biden is now leading in the state of Pennsylvania. He was down last night, while everybody was going to sleep, he was down about 22,000 votes. Biden's now taken the lead in Pennsylvania by 7 votes. And why that's important is because with the votes that remain in Pennsylvania, a bulk of them is located in Philadelphia, where Biden is leading by a margin of about 90 to 91%. And even throughout the rest of the state of Pennsylvania, we see that in the rest of the state of Pennsylvania, where we should be good to go. I'm going to wait a hot second just to get the confirmation from everybody that we are that we're good. Cool. I think we're okay. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Okay, so as I was saying, Pennsylvania, even in those red counties in central Pennsylvania and northern Pennsylvania, where Trump would normally be leading, 70% of the vote, all of a sudden we're seeing Biden take these counties because the ballots that are left to be counted are the mail ballots. And by the way, that was by design, right? Something important to remember is that states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan hadn't counted their votes early because their Republican legislatures wanted to give Trump the optics of an early lead, and because they knew that those election day ballots would break in his favor, and because they knew the election day ballots would break in his favor, and because they knew the early votes would break in his favor, would break in Joe Biden's favor. The Republicans wanted to hand Trump the good optics of an early lead. And also, I mean, let's be honest, we knew exactly what Trump was going to do because he broadcast it, right? He said that he's going to declare mail ballots fraudulent. And so the way that he would do that is by, securing his early lead, so to speak. And then as soon as he could do that, and he could point to the fact that, okay, any mail ballots that are coming in, or where are they finding these ballots, as soon as he realized that they could do that, then all of a sudden, that they would, that's what would happen. So, and by the way, that is what happened. Trump went on air on, Tuesday night, and basically declared victory. He said, we've won this election. And he clearly hadn't won the election. He was just banking on the fact that, we wouldn't be able to, I don't know, count those mail-in ballots in time. So in any case, so let's talk about the different states. I'm going to give you some updates on numbers here. In the state of Georgia, as of last night, Joe Biden was down about 1,200 votes. As of this morning, he's up 1,500 votes. Why is this important? Because the ballots left to be counted in Georgia, there's about 4,000 of them. And, there are 4,000 overseas and military ballots that are still arriving. But the vast majority of ballots that still need to be counted in the state of Georgia are generally located in Savannah and Atlanta. So these are places that break overwhelmingly in Joe Biden's favor. I mean, he's taking the votes coming out of Atlanta by like an 80% margin. So the state of Georgia, there's not necessarily a path to victory for Donald Trump in a state like Georgia, where the votes are coming from Democratic strongholds. So let's see if I can pull up some more numbers here, give you all the most accurate information. Okay, out of Arizona, there's about 275,000 votes remaining. They just announced. Here we go. I'm going to raise my mic. Test, test, test. Here we go. So, looks like, we have about 4,000 votes left to be counted in Georgia. Again, Joe Biden's margin right now in Georgia is that he's up 1,500 votes. Again, the vast majority of the votes that remain are located in the Savannah and Atlanta regions, which are Democratic strongholds. Here's why the state of Georgia is especially important, because it's not just the presidential race. If everything holds right now as it's been going so far, what we're looking at is 2 Senate runoffs. And they're going to be, it's between, Reverend Warnock and Kelly Loeffler, as well as Jon Ossoff and Perdue. And this Perdue race was important. We were watching it pretty closely, and we were waiting for Perdue to drop below 50%. What happens in Georgia is that everybody can run for, anybody who wants to run can run in the regular election. If nobody breaks the 50% threshold, then the top 2 vote getters will automatically advance to a runoff. So that's what happened. We were waiting for David Perdue's margin to drop below 50% for a long time. For over 24 hours, it was hanging around at like 50.2%. And then finally, yesterday toward the evening, we saw it drop to about 4.99. So that's where we're at right now. He might have dropped a little bit lower than 4.99, a few hundredths of a percent. But the important thing is that if everything holds here, that's 2 runoff elections in Georgia. And that's especially important because that's especially important to control the fate of the Senate. So the Senate right now, as it stands, is we're waiting on four races that have not been called yet. And that would be the race in Alaska. And our candidate, would be Al Gross. He's actually running as an independent, but it's Al Gross running against Dan Sullivan. It is the race in North Carolina, which is Tom Tillis versus Cal Cunningham. Both of those races, we shouldn't have an answer anytime soon. It should take a few days. I know that North Carolina is waiting for any ballots that have come in late to come back in. So we'll wait for, if I'm not mistaken, it might take as much as 6 more days in North Carolina, but don't quote me on that. But I do know that they're waiting to. Get the rest of those results back in North Carolina from ballots that have been postmarked in time, but that are coming in late, and I believe it's the same in Alaska. But the other 2 races that we're waiting on are in Georgia, and those are the most likely that we have to flip right now for 2 reasons. One, because Alaska, as it stands right now with about half of the vote in, I believe that Dan Sullivan, the Republican, is still leading by a sizable margin, by something in the 60th percentile to the 30th percentile. This is also the state of Alaska, probably the most conservative of the ones that we're waiting on. And the state of North Carolina has been quite tight as well. Let me see if I can pull the North Carolina. So Tom Tillis is still leading Cal Cunningham 48.7 to 46.9. So it's a sizable margin. It is about 97,000 votes of a lead. We're still waiting for quite a few, 7% of the ballots to still come in. If I'm not mistaken, we'll have a sizable portion of those. Those are mail ballots, so those are going to break in Democrats' favor. Whether they're able to overcome that 97,000 vote margin still remains to be seen. But I would say the most likely options that we have to flip the Senate are the 2 Georgia races for 2 reasons. One is because if everything continues on the path that it's going on right now, which is that, with about maybe 4,000 votes left to count in Georgia, it's looking more and more like a Biden victory in that state. And so we'll be coming off of a fresh victory and proof that Democrats can win statewide in the state of Georgia. And not only that, regardless of your feelings for Donald Trump, you have to be able to admit that the guy can turn out his base, that he can turn out these Republicans who voted for him. Joe Biden had record turnout in the United States of America, but so did Donald Trump. So without Biden having been on the ballot, Donald Trump would have set the record for the highest turnout that we've ever had. The fact that Joe Biden was able to overcome that margin is important for us, and obviously a testament to how unpopular Trump is. But within the Republican Party, there's no doubt as to Trump's popularity. But if Trump, obviously loses this election, if he's no longer in office, then what we're looking at is two runoff elections in Georgia without the benefit of having Trump on that ballot. And God knows whether he will help if he's an ousted politician, if he's going to show up to campaign in Georgia, because he's not in this for the party. He's in this for himself. And so if he no longer has a stake in this, then what we're looking at really is relying on Trump's goodwill, his benevolence to help the party. And I'm not sure I would go to Vegas with that in my back pocket. So with that said, that's how the situation looks in Georgia. Consider too the fact that Democrats, our attention was focused all over the place. It was focused leading up to this election. We had our attention focused on Maine, on Arizona, on Florida. We had our attention focused on Texas and Iowa, and split between all these different states. And now, with this election over, with the Senate, the future of the Senate hanging in the balance, if we can pinpoint our attention onto one singular state, and you have the future of the Senate, and if I'm bold enough to say the future of the planet hanging in the balance in Georgia, and we can take all of that energy and basically having been granted a do-over, right? Because if we weren't able to take the Senate here, that's what we need. Then I think that bodes really well for us. Consider too that we still have people like Stacey Abrams who are doing God's work in the state of Georgia. Stacey Abrams and her group, Fair Fight, were able to register 800,000 Georgians, which is a massive number. And imagine what she'll be able to do with the resources of the entire nation behind her. What I'm hoping is that any money left over in these campaigns, in Biden's campaign, in any Senate races or House races that were left over with money with the DNC, that it all goes to Stacey Abrams and John Ossoff and Reverend Warnock in the state of Georgia, so that they could continue to turn out and register voters once this presidential race is called. And I think that we're anywhere from minutes away from that being reality. Then we could, we can celebrate for a hot minute, and then we can turn our attention where it needs to be, which is reclaiming a majority in the Senate. And when I say a majority, I'm talking about, if we're not able to take Alaska, if we're not able to take North Carolina, then our majority in this sense would be 50-50. It would be these 2 Georgia Senate seats. And if we run the White House, then that would be good enough for a majority in the Senate. So because the vice president would act as a tiebreaker in that scenario. So let's see. I'm going to answer some questions because I see that I have a lot of questions in the comments section. So let's see. Yeah, so I'm going to explain runoffs. So I've been getting this question a lot. What I mean by runoffs is that in the state of Georgia, anybody can participate in the regular election. If you don't hit the 50% threshold, so the majority of voters, if you don't hit that 50% threshold, that's the only way to win outright in this Georgia Senate race. So if you aren't able to hit 50%, and what we're looking at right now is a race that is, let me pull up these Senate races. We're looking at a race that is, I believe it is 49.9. Okay. Here we go. 49.8 with David Perdue to John Ossoff's 47.8. So with that said, we don't have anybody who's broken that 50% threshold. So why that's important is because now it goes to a runoff. And what the runoff is the final 2 vote getters. So in this case, the Republican candidate, David Perdue, the incumbent, and John Ossoff, the Democrat, will go into a runoff where it's just those 2 who are on the ballot. And so that's what we mean by a runoff in this situation. So I hope that helps explain what the runoff situation is. I don't believe that any other states use that. That's unique to Georgia. So let's talk about what we're seeing out of Arizona. So Arizona, there was just a vote dump that came in Arizona. Joe Biden had a commanding lead in Arizona, and as these votes continue to come in from the state of Arizona, I know that you're probably wondering why Arizona is still at play, because I believe the AP has called Arizona. I believe that Fox called Arizona. And so now all of a sudden Arizona is back at play, and that seems to be the point of contention. I know Trump had a full-blown temper tantrum, and if I'm not mistaken, got on the phone with Rupert Murdoch and tried to ream him out and tried to get him to rescind his call for the state of Arizona. He did not. So if you are looking for a Biden victory in that state, that should inspire a bit of confidence. But then again, it also might just be the network being pot committed to the state of Arizona and them not wanting to, to kind of admit fault or embarrass themselves. And I know that seems to be a recurring theme from those on the right. So with that said, Trump has been, winning these latest vote dumps in the state of Arizona, and he had been winning them. He needed to have won them by a margin of about 60%. And throughout the night, every vote dump that would come in through the state of Arizona would meet that threshold. And so people were looking at this and saying, okay, Donald Trump is taking 60% or 59%, exactly what he needed to take to take this state. And then this morning, as we've started to see more votes come in from Arizona, I believe he's fallen below that threshold. So right now, I mean, look, Arizona, in my opinion, is leaning in Biden's favor only because Trump is not able to continue meeting that threshold that he needs to be able to take the state. But it's still up in the air, so we'll see what happens in Arizona. As it stands right now, Joe Biden is up almost 44,000 votes with 92% of the vote counted. Those in the state of Georgia, let's go back to Georgia. Georgia has until today to get their cured ballots in. That's fixed ballots in case there's an issue on any of these ballots. So let's see if we have any more. Let's see. In about a half hour, we should be expecting about 50,000 votes from Nevada. Nevada, as you know, is a state that's known for staying up late and counting. And here we are, 175 days later, and Nevada still hasn't been able to count their votes. So they might like the attention, or they might just be being careful. I think that's probably the fair thing to say. But it is ironic that in a state predicated on counting things, that Nevada can't quite seem to get its act together. I mean, Vegas has been closed for like 9 months. You might as well just try to find 1,000 card count, 1,000 people who work in the casinos there, and employ them for 45 minutes. They'll get the entire thing counted. So, all right. So let me see if I can find some more information. Yeah, so let me just jump back to Arizona. So those vote dumps that we've been getting, they're coming from Maricopa County, which is the Phoenix area of Arizona. Up until just now, Trump had been taking about 58, 59, 60% of them, and that's what he needed to stay on track to actually overtake Joe Biden in the state. And what we just found with that latest vote dump of 61,000 votes is that Trump's margin went from about 60% down to 51.5%. So that's obviously pretty bad for Trump if his goal here is to, maintain the margin that he needs to overtake Biden, because those margins, which is, a 52% margin, is not going to cut it in Arizona. So Arizona is back to looking good for Joe Biden. Again, the state of Pennsylvania has been looking good for Joe Biden since yesterday. The votes that were waiting to come in the state of Pennsylvania overwhelmingly favor Joe Biden. I'm talking even in the reddest counties and the reddest districts across the state, even the ones in central Pennsylvania, I'm talking like out in the sticks in Pennsylvania, Biden is taking all of these votes because the early votes have already come in. Republicans made it so that the first votes that would be counted would be the early votes. And so what that would do is give Trump a sizable lead. And then, it would remain to be seen whether when those mail ballots eventually started trickling in, if it would, not be enough to basically cut into the big lead that that Trump had created. So let's see. I can confirm right now that Pennsylvania has not been called. For those asking. When Pennsylvania is called, the election will be called. Because depending on the network, we're looking at either Fox News, I believe, has Joe Biden at 264 electoral votes. The NBC family has Joe Biden at 259, I want to say, or maybe 253. But either way, as soon as they decide to call Pennsylvania, they'll be able to call the election. So what we're waiting on now are these final numbers to be counted out of Pennsylvania. And what I'm doing right now while I'm on with you is just trying to get the most up-to-date numbers that I can. Okay, so right now we should be waiting for a sizable number of votes. Let's see. The next vote dump that we should be expecting from Georgia should be probably within the hour. We're expecting another 5,000 votes. That is coming from Gwinnett County, which is a suburb of Atlanta. So these votes that are coming in from the state of Georgia are overwhelmingly favoring Joe Biden. These votes that are coming in, they're either coming in from Atlanta or Atlanta suburbs or Savannah. And again, all of these are the Democratic strongholds of the state. So if I had to choose who I'd rather be between Trump and Joe Biden in the state of Georgia, I would far and away rather be Joe Biden right now. Not only in Georgia, but Pennsylvania as well. Let me see if anybody's called any of these races yet. So networks have officially called in the Arizona Senate election for Mark Kelly. So Mark Kelly has officially, and we basically knew this would be the case, but we were waiting to see if any of those late arriving ballots, which again were breaking in Republicans' favor, would be enough to overtake the lead that Mark Kelly had over Martha Mcsally in the Arizona Senate race. The answer is no, it wasn't enough. So Mark Kelly is officially our second flip of the election cycle in the Senate. And obviously Democrats lost Doug Jones, which was sad but fully expected. So the other state that Democrats were able to flip, of course, was Hickenlooper took Cory Gardner's seat in Colorado. So what that does, because we've lost Doug Jones and we won Hickenlooper and now Mark Kelly, that nets us one seat in the Senate. Obviously, the Senate was 47-53, so now it's 48-52, and we're waiting. That would be the breakdown right now. But of course, we're waiting for results to come out of Alaska. We're waiting for results to come out of North Carolina. Both of those should not be expected today. They should be expected at some point, maybe days away from now, as those votes continue to come in. And then, of course, as I've explained, if anybody's joining anew, the situation in Georgia is that it's looking like we're going to have both of our candidates, both Democratic candidates, going to a runoff on January 5th. So let's see if I could answer some questions that people have. So if you have any questions, throw them in the comments section. I'm going to grab a drink real quick. Okay. So people are asking what has happened in Nevada overnight. Nevada, let's see. It looks like Joe Biden's lead has expanded from 11,000 last night, when I'm sure everybody went to bed in the United States, to all of a sudden, when we woke up this morning, the lead is 22,000. So a lot of these votes are coming from Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is. They're coming from Reno. Both of these are Democratic strongholds in the state. We're just waiting for these votes to get counted. But again, the state of Nevada is, for all intents and purposes, a blue state, right? So this is a state that Hillary Clinton won in 2016. This is a state that has been trending bluer. We've also seen that, with regard to the demographic changes, that while Democrats didn't perform well with Cubans in South Florida, for example, or they didn't perform well with the Latino population in the south of Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley. What they have been doing well is performing well with the Latino population in Nevada and Arizona, and obviously there's sizable Latino populations in those states. So that's good news. I think at this point, all the networks are trying to do. Yeah, so these are those that 22,000 lead is a new update. So Joe Biden has basically doubled his lead in the state of Nevada. Doubled his lead in the state of Nevada. So from 11,000 votes to 22,000 votes. Putting that state even farther out of reach than it was before. With these votes coming in from Clark County, which is Vegas, and also the Reno area, I don't see how Donald Trump pulls out the state of Nevada. And so what that would do, because networks like Fox and I believe the AP have called the state of Arizona for Joe Biden and have not rescinded that call. Once we have enough results that we're able to finally call the state of Nevada, that would put Joe Biden at 270 votes. So I'm not sure. I mean, what that would mean is that he became president of the United States, that Joe Biden is the president-elect of the United States. That's what that would mean. So we'll wait and see how what the networks do in terms of actually calling the race. But Nevada has quickly gotten away from Donald Trump. Again, we just got a major haul that came in, and it looks like Joe Biden has doubled his lead from about 11,000 votes to 22,000 votes. So that's the newest news out of the state of Nevada. Within the next half hour or so, we should be getting another 5,000 votes coming in from Georgia. Again, Gwinnett County, which is a Democratic-leaning suburb. So these votes are going to continue to widen Joe Biden's lead, which is already at 1,500. Again, this is the state of Georgia, which hasn't, voted for a Democrat since, I believe, Bill Clinton in 1992. So that's what we're looking at right now in the state of Georgia. Pennsylvania is very quickly getting away from Donald Trump. Again, the votes that are being counted are not only the mail ballots that are being counted late that already favor Joe Biden, but they're coming, a vast sum of them are coming from Philadelphia, where they are breaking in Biden's favor 90-1, which is a massive margin in Joe Biden's favor. So the prospects look really good for Biden in Pennsylvania. They look really good for Biden in Nevada. They look really good for Biden in Georgia. And if they stay as they are right now, which is that Trump has the late coming votes and late counted votes in Arizona breaking in his favor, but by the margins that they're breaking in, then Arizona looks good for Joe Biden too. And again, there's also the fact that the networks have all basically except NBC has called the state of Arizona for Joe Biden, should kind of confer a degree of confidence in that state as well. So let's see if I can get any updates right now. By the way, if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. And I'm doing my best to give you the most up-to-date information that we have right now. So I have every tab, every TV open and working. So as soon as new information comes in, like the Nevada vote drop that we just got, that extended Biden's lead to 22,000 votes, then I'll give you that information. Is there a chance that Trump will overtake Biden in Arizona? There is a chance that Trump could overtake Biden in Arizona, but not with the margins that he's getting right now. Again, Trump needs about 60% of the votes that are coming in the state of Arizona, and right now he's taking about 51.5% of them. So at this rate right now, the answer is no. He does not have the margins he needs right now to take that state. What if the Senate results in a 50-50 tie? Is there a Senate leader? So in the event that there is a 50-50 Senate, which obviously is what we're hoping for right now, the party that would be in the majority would be the party that technically would have the person acting as tiebreaker, which would be Kamala Harris. So Joe Biden taking the White House would mean that Kamala Harris as vice president would act as the tiebreaker in the Senate. So a 50-50 Senate, a 50-50 tie would basically mean a majority for the Democrats, because as long as we can keep the Democratic caucus together, then we can pass the legislation that we need with that tie-breaking vote from Kamala Harris. So I believe that technically, if I'm not mistaken, that if everything stayed as it was, that Chuck Schumer would be the majority leader in the event that we have a 50-50 Senate. How are we going to get Trump out of the White House? I'm not as worried about physically removing the man from the White House. If he wants to, try to plant his feet and plant his flag and just basically claim squatters' rights, then that's on him. And I'm sure that there would be Capitol Police Department officers and Secret Service officers that would be happy to remove him from the premises. And I really don't think that those are the optics that Trump is going to want to have within, in the final moments of his presidency. I think that his ego would be way too bruised, having the final moments of his presidency, the entire nation basically watching him, get up, crawled up in the fetal position and refuse to leave the White House. So something tells me him leaving isn't going to be an issue, but right now it seems that he is happy to try and litigate. If you want to talk about what he has actually litigated thus far, it is a sad state of affairs. We have a lawsuit in the state of Georgia where somebody from the Trump campaign had said that an election worker brought in 53 ballots and they thought that they came in after the deadline. And so the judge asked them, okay, well, what evidence do you have of that? And the Trump campaign said none. And so that case was dismissed. In Michigan, they said that they wanted to halt all voting until they can allow more observers to come in, because this is their talking point now, that that they need poll watchers, like self-appointed Trump vigilantes that are going to come in and make sure that the election isn't stolen by the deep state and the socialist Marxist Democrats. And so what they didn't acknowledge is that, and what the judge asked the Trump campaign point blank is, do you already have observers in that room? And the Trump campaign said, well, yes. And the judge said, then what are we doing here? So that was what happened in the state of Michigan. They did notch one win, which is that those who were in the room would be able to observe from a distance of 6 feet instead of a distance of 10 feet. So big victory, notch one more win on your belt against the Antifa super soldiers, I guess. But so that was the situation in Michigan. Similar situation in the state of Pennsylvania, where they wanted to halt voting until they could get, I guess, unlimited observers into that room to watch those who were counting. The judge denied that. So as of yesterday, the Trump campaign was basically 0 for 3 in terms of their litigation. And that's what I think is ironic, that at the end of the day, what the let me real quick see if we have any updates. At the end of the day, what the Trump campaign really had banked on was ramming a Supreme Court justice onto the court, because Amy Coney Barrett, once she was seated onto the Supreme Court, she would be able to help him take this election from the Democrats, who were obviously going to steal with all their rigged ballots, rigged in the sense that they were not for him. And so now you're looking at the first, now we're getting a glimpse into the first forays of what a Trump strategy in the courts actually looks like, and it is so sad. And such an unmitigated failure, and in a way like a reflection of this presidency, because what are we talking about here? We're talking about 53 votes in Georgia, and you couldn't even win that case. We're talking about letting more people into the room in Michigan, or changing the distance that your supporters are watching at from 10 feet to 6 feet? That's how you, what's the path to get this in front of the Supreme Court? Like, we're talking about same thing in Pennsylvania, the state that will basically be responsible for Biden becoming the next president. As soon as Pennsylvania is called, Joe Biden's the next president of the United States. We're really talking about these pathetic court cases. And so, if this is Trump's thought, if his thought here is that he's going to litigate away this election in his favor in the courts, well, he needs a better strategy, because right now it's not going well for him in any sense of the term. So what I think is going to happen is, if Biden is able to ultimately take Pennsylvania, if he's able to take Georgia, if he's able to take Nevada, if he's able to take Arizona, then I believe his electoral vote margin is going to be about 306 electoral votes, if I'm not mistaken. So what that would mean is, like what I would imagine might happen is, instead of drawing out the inevitability of a Biden win, they might drop these lawsuits if there is nothing there. Then again, if Trump's entire strategy is just, he knows he's lost, but he has to go through the whole song and dance, because that's what his brand is. And he's already told his supporters that the only way he can lose the election is that it's rigged. And now you have to do the whole thing anyway and pretend that it's still rigged. And, if that's the case, then he might go through go through the motions just to play his part. But it's political theater. Everybody knows it's political theater, except maybe his base, because they have been legitimately brainwashed into thinking that the only way on God's green earth that Donald Trump can lose is if the election's rigged. When in reality, what we're looking at right now is so far a popular vote lead from Joe Biden in the millions. So that's the deal with the court system. Again, I'm actually interviewing Congressman Jamie Raskin, and that will come out on Sunday. And I'm going to talk about all of the legal stuff. So if you have any legal questions, can Trump get this in front of the Supreme Court? Let's see what other questions I have. Can he? What happens to the lawsuits that are ongoing? What is the deal with lawsuits in Nevada? He has voter fraud lawsuits in Nevada. What is the route for Trump to challenge the election results in the Supreme Court? Can any of these questions I'm gonna have answered in my interview with Jamie Raskin. He's a constitutional scholar, so by trade. So that's gonna be my interview coming up. Let's see if I can answer some more questions. Will they prosecute Trump? Look, I don't know what's gonna happen in the next administration. I can tell you what I hope, and that's to see an administration that doesn't defer to, okay, Democrats are in, now it's time to, all wounds are healed, it's time for compromise. I hope that the rule of law is stood up for, and what we've seen out of the Trump administration is an all-out assault on the rule of law. And so, what I'm hoping is that no, like these what we see out of these this next administration, what we see out of any impending litigation is that it holds Trump and people like Louis DeJoy accountable for what they've done. I mean, even you look at what Louis DeJoy is dealing with right now, and we have rejection rates in the post office that surged in the days before the election. And lo and behold, they were in minority majority areas in swing states. I mean, it's election interference for all intents and purposes. And so another question that I'll be asking Jamie Raskin when I speak to him is whether we should wait to charge someone like that, or to bring any indictments forward on someone like Louis DeJoy, because what's the pardon situation? If Louis DeJoy is charged right now, well, then Trump can go ahead and pardon him. And the same goes for anybody else. So when people say charge this person, well, would it behoove us to actually wait until Trump is out of office, because how does the power of a pardon impact all of these things? So that's what I hope to see in terms of a Trump prosecution. What do I look forward to? It's Joe Biden as president. I look forward to enacting a progressive agenda. I look forward to look, a lot of this is going to hinge also on whether we are able to take the Senate. We're lucky enough, we kind of have a do-over in the Senate in terms of being able to still take the majority if we need it. So, depending on what happens in this runoff election on January 5th, which again came as a result of the fact that no one in either Georgia Senate race exceeded that 50% threshold. So both of those races are going to a runoff on January 5th, both Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff, both of those races. And so so depending on whether we take the Senate is gonna have a huge impact on what our agenda is next term. I mean, look, the fact is that we've already been shown point blank what a Mitch McConnell majority Senate is capable of, and it's obstructionism. It is no judges getting confirmed. It is not even bringing voting rights legislation to the floor. It's not having any hope of bringing desperately needed climate change legislation to the floor. So really, whatever your issue is, whether you're just a voter that focuses on climate change, for example, maybe you're not that political, or maybe you know someone who's not that political, but climate change is your thing. Maybe you've been so disenfranchised that you think your vote doesn't matter, and so voting rights are your thing, and you'll just vote on these issues of voter suppression. Whatever your issue, all of that is going to hinge on the United States Senate. So if those matter to you, and if you are not registered, or if you didn't vote even in this election, if you know someone who's not registered or didn't vote, now is the time to find one more person and to do your part to get them registered. So that's what we're looking at right now. Let me see if I can get any updates from the race as it stands, because I know a lot of people are wondering. If you're just tuning in, you're wondering about that. So let's see if we have any updates here. So the networks still have not projected a winner in Nevada, which defies logic, only because Joe Biden has now doubled. In this latest vote haul that came in, Joe Biden picked up 20,000 votes to Trump's 10,000 votes, extending his lead to about 22,000 in total. The remaining votes in the state of Nevada are from Clark County, which is Las Vegas. And so right now, if you can see on the corner of the screen here, Biden's lead is 624,000 to 602,000. The remaining votes are coming out of the Vegas area. It is the Democratic stronghold in the state. It defies logic why. Look at the margins right there, 53.6 to 44.7. I mean, that is not a county where Trump is going to be able to pull out a victory. It just it doesn't make any sense. So anyway, with that said, I'm sure they're just being careful, but the point is that Nevada is effectively a done deal. And if you're looking at, if you're going by Fox or the AP, who already have Joe Biden at 264 electoral votes, these 6 electoral votes in the state of Nevada are enough to push him to 270. So Joe Biden's victory is imminent. It's a matter of these votes, I guess, continuing to trickle in. But the good news is, depending on the network that's going to call it, depending on when the states of Pennsylvania and Georgia can get their votes counted, the good news is that a Joe Biden victory is all but assured at this point. Let's see. Someone asked if Martha Mcsally lost in Arizona. Yes, Martha Mcsally has officially lost, as one of the most accomplished senators in the sense that she is the only person that I know to have lost a Senate race twice in 2 years. So that's Martha Mcsally. You might remember her from calling a CNN reporter a partisan hack, and fully aligning herself with Trump, which clearly did her well in a state that has so thoroughly repudiated Donald Trump in this election. You have people like Cindy McCain, who are basically heroes in that state, who have campaigned against Trump. Turns out, trashing a dead war hero and the husband of a hero woman in that state isn't a good strategy for victory. Who'd have guessed? But what do I know? I didn't write Art of the Deal, so. Let's see if I can answer some more questions. By the way, with regard to the Electoral College, I know a lot of people are asking about the Electoral College. The Electoral College is still inherently undemocratic. I still believe that we should, adopt the National Popular Vote Compact. Look, it is so hard to consider ourselves this shining beacon of democracy in the world, and yet at the same time, a president can win an election by 3, 4, 5 million votes and not necessarily become president. I mean, Donald Trump himself won in 2016 by, 2.9 million votes. That is not a democratic system. When you lose the popular vote by 2.9 million votes and then still become president somehow, it gives outsized influence to about 10,000 people in the state of Michigan or 20,000 people in the state of Wisconsin. And meanwhile, you have, Californians aren't less American because they come from a bluer state, right? So that's my thoughts on the Electoral College. What's going on in North Carolina? We are waiting for votes to be returned. I think they have a few days before they have to count those votes out of North Carolina. So we're just waiting for those final returns out of North Carolina. It's not going to be today that we're going to hear from North Carolina, but that race is important because that race could help determine the future of the Senate. So we still have Cal Cunningham running against Tom Tillis. That race has not been called. He's down by about maybe just under 2 points. Let's see. Do I think Biden and Harris will abolish the Electoral College? No, I don't think they'll abolish the Electoral College. But hopefully what I hope states do is that they adopt the National Popular Vote Compact, which is just what I was speaking about. And the more states that adopt it, once we have enough to hit 270, then it goes into effect. So if you live in a state that has not yet adopted the National Popular Vote Compact, that's a good issue as we head into this next term. Tell us what you think will happen when Donald Trump is a lame duck. Look, I mean, if I don't think you can pay me enough to try to get me into the head of Donald Trump, but we'll see. What I'm hoping is that this election is enough of a repudiation of him that what we have is him cutting the act and just at least acknowledging the fact that he lost. Do I think that will happen? Would I put my money on that? Likely not. I think that Donald Trump's entire persona, his entire brand, is predicated on this idea that he was rigged, that he had something stolen from him, that it was rigged, and that goes back as far as 2016. If you watch the 2016 debate, Hillary Clinton actually called him out for this. I mean, the guy's been claiming that even the 2016 election that he won was rigged. He claimed that the Emmys were rigged against him because his third-rate reality show didn't win an Emmy. So Donald, this isn't a fleeting thing. This isn't like, oh, Donald Trump has become crazier and crazier over the years, although he has. But the place he started from was a really low point to begin with. So in terms of Trump just, settling down and accepting the results of this election, I think that that's unlikely. So for people that are just tuning in, I know that there is a desire to hear about what's going on in the race. So let me very quickly go through these states that we're looking at right now. In Arizona, Joe Biden is up about 44,000 votes in the state of Arizona. We're still waiting for about 7% of the state's votes to come in. In order for Donald Trump to close that gap, what he needs is for those remaining votes to be able to close that 1.5 point margin that Biden's opened up for himself. What Donald Trump needs is to win 60% of those votes. Right now, he's winning about 51% of them. So Donald Trump's trajectory right now with the votes that are coming in is not enough to swing the results of this race in his favor. So with that said, Arizona looks really good for Biden. Again, Fox News has already called Arizona for Biden. I believe the AP has already called Arizona for Biden. NBC has not called Arizona for Biden. So we're waiting on that. And moving on. So anyway, with Arizona, we should be getting a new batch of votes. Let's see. We should be getting a new batch of votes. I'm not sure when the next batch of votes for Arizona is going to come in, but in any case, if Trump continues the margin that he's looking at right now, it will not be enough to pull it out for him. Moving on to the next state, Georgia. Trump has been whittling away at Trump's lead. Biden's been whittling away at Trump's lead in Georgia. Biden now has a lead in the state of Georgia by 1,500 votes. If you went to bed last night, you probably saw that Trump was leading in the state of Georgia by about 1,800 votes. Just before I went to bed at midnight on the West Coast, I saw that lead had dropped down for Trump to 1,200. And now Biden's taken the lead in the state of Georgia, and he currently holds that lead at about 1,500 or 1,600 votes as we stand right now. So the good news about Georgia is we are waiting on, let's see, 4,000 votes, and they are coming overwhelmingly from, they're coming overwhelmingly from the Savannah area and the Atlanta area. So these are Democratic strongholds in the state. I don't see a planet on which Donald Trump can reclaim his lead from Joe Biden's 1,500 vote lead that he has right now, although we are waiting on an unknown number of overseas and military ballots in that state as well. So we'll just keep an eye on Georgia. I think the point is that as these votes continue to trickle in from Savannah and Atlanta, which again are Democratic strongholds, that eventually we'll be able to call that state. Let me just get some new information. Nevada, we just had a very recent drop of votes come in, and those favored Joe Biden by a margin of more than 10,000 votes in total. So let's see. 10,000 votes in total. So while we fix this right here, I'm just gonna fix my feed was paused. So in Nevada, we just had those latest batch of votes that came in broke in our favor, 20,000 to 10,000. So Joe Biden's lead in Nevada was already 11,000 votes as of last night, and right now that lead has turned to 20,500. So that's the lead in Nevada. The remaining votes, the outstanding votes, are coming from Clark County. So that is where Las Vegas is. That is obviously another Democratic stronghold. I do not see a planet on which Donald Trump can take the lead from Joe Biden in Nevada. So I think as we just wait for those votes to trickle in, I'm sure what the networks are doing is, let's see. Cool, that's fixed. I'm sure what the networks are doing is just waiting until it's beyond doubt. And the reason for that is that, I'm sure we'll get Donald Trump claiming that everything is rigged in the event that he isn't able to, that there are still outstanding votes. So that's the deal in Nevada. And finally, with regard to Pennsylvania, Biden has a 9,700 vote lead. He's leading by 1/10 of a point. The votes that are outstanding in Pennsylvania are mail ballots. That's what they're counting at this point in the race. And those ballots are breaking overwhelmingly in Joe Biden's favor. They're breaking well beyond 50%. So beyond that, there's a vast number of votes that we're waiting for to come in out of Philadelphia, which are not only breaking in Joe Biden's favor, they're breaking in his favor at a rate of 90%, which is a huge, effectively insurmountable margin in that state. So every state that we're waiting for right now, is trending Biden, or every state that we're waiting for right now, except for North Carolina, is basically safe for Biden or trending Biden. And again, that's the states of Philadelphia, where Biden's lead, Biden's margins are excellent and they're trending upward. Is Nevada, where Biden's lead is now up to 20,000 votes. Is Georgia, where Biden has overtaken Trump and now has a almost 1,600 vote lead. And the state of Arizona, where Biden's lead is 43,700 votes. And, I'm sure Trump will eat into that, but whether he can eat into it enough to overtake Joe Biden in that state is unlikely, because he's not hitting the margins he needs right now. The fact is that I think that the through line here, the thing that we have to recognize is that Joe Biden is leading in all of these states. Donald Trump needs all four of those to win. He needs four of the five remaining. He needs four of the five remaining states, I believe. So that's his path to victory. Joe Biden's is basically, once Pennsylvania is called, it's game over. Otherwise, depending on the network that you're watching, if Arizona has already been called, then Nevada is enough to push him over the edge. Same deal in Georgia, and obviously we're waiting to hear from North Carolina, but that would, in my opinion, be the least likely to flip. So Mike Noble, a Phoenix-based pollster, has basically just said that that's a wrap for Donald Trump in Arizona. The votes that are coming in out of Arizona are not enough to overtake Joe Biden's lead there. So again, I guess we're just waiting for some very trigger-shy networks to be able to call that race. But the way it's looking right now is there is no path to victory for Trump in the state of Arizona. So again, that's a race that had largely been called by a few networks, but there was some doubt. And so to assuage some of your concerns about that network, now we have pollsters located in the state that are saying it's a done deal. That's a ball game for Donald Trump in the state of Arizona. So that's what we're looking at right now. Let me see if I can answer some questions that you have in case things aren't perfectly clear for you. And yes, it does look like Georgia would be headed to a recount. If you look at what the history of recounts show, if you look at a state like Wisconsin, for example, there was a recount in the Wisconsin Supreme Court in 2011, and I believe that netted about 300 vote difference. There was a recount also in the state of Wisconsin in 2016 that was brought about by Jill Stein, and that netted a 131 vote difference. So these recounts, you might get tens or hundreds of votes swing, but overall, I mean, the leads that we're talking about right now are not enough to be affected by that. I mean, right now, as it stands, Joe Biden has a 1,500 vote 1,584 vote lead in Georgia. So that's where there's likely to be a recount. But with that said, there's still another 5,000 votes that are expected from an Atlanta suburb. So that margin by Joe Biden is just going to continue to expand, and highly, highly unlikely that we'll see anything. Of course, that won't stop Trump from demanding a recount anyway, because he needs to feed his ego, and to him, everything is a conspiracy by the deep state to take him down. But with that said, the important thing to remember is that recounts don't have a history of really flipping elections. Somebody asked me what would be my favorite position to fill in the next administration. If I had to pick a position, obviously I would pick press secretary, but I think I'm perfectly happy hanging out here with all of you. So we'll keep that as it is for right now. And if the White House calls me, we'll figure it out after that. But why don't they just call it for Biden? Somebody asked. That's a good question. I think the issue is that if there are still votes outstanding, Donald Trump we already know that Trump is going to claim that there's some vast conspiracy against him because he's already done it. We're in the midst of that. He's already claiming that illegal votes are being counted. So when you have a president like Donald Trump who is so dangerously reliant on this misinformation and on sowing doubt and undermining trust in our institutions as it is, well, if we have X amount of votes still remaining, Trump can say, well, why haven't you counted those votes? How do you know those votes are still for Joe Biden? See, this is what the media does. They're all conspiring against me. So knowing that he's going to do that, I think the important thing that we have to do is just mitigate, protect ourselves against those risks by Donald Trump. And so I'm sure the networks are just being as sure as humanly possible that everything is is beyond doubt. And so they're just waiting until Joe Biden's lead is bigger than the amount of votes that are outstanding in these states. And that's what I think that we're doing. So even in a state like Pennsylvania, where, the remaining votes are mail ballots, and we know that they're breaking in Joe Biden's favor at a huge rate, or that they're coming from places like Philadelphia, which are breaking in Joe Biden's favor at like a 91% rate. Well, still, I think that they just have to mitigate against any risk, and they know that Donald Trump is gonna cry foul, so they're just waiting for that. But at this point, if I had to guess, I would say that this is a done deal, and I don't think that it's not even that Joe Biden's gonna just eke out a win. I think he's going to break 300 electoral votes pretty easily at this point. So that's my thoughts on why they haven't just called the race for him. Let's see if there's any other questions. So people are asking what happens if Trump doesn't leave. I spoke about this a little earlier. Here's the thing. His term is going to end on January 20th, 2021, whether he wants to leave the White House or not. So if he doesn't want to leave, I mean, that's on him, and he'll give some junior officer in the Capitol Hill Police Department or a Secret Service agent the opportunity to escort a former president of the United States out, but his term is going to end regardless of whether he wants to leave or not. So I don't think it's a matter of being worried that Trump won't leave. There's no such thing as squatters' rights in the White House. So his term is going to end. Whether he wants to participate in the transition with Joe Biden is an entirely separate issue, and it's unlikely that he will. But with that said, our election will be certified, and a winner will be declared regardless of whether that's okay with Donald Trump. So I wouldn't worry about a prospect of Donald Trump not leaving. But with that said, I know that that's a question that a lot of people have. So in my interview coming up with Jamie Raskin that will be released on Sunday, I'll be filming it today. I'm going to ask him that question and a whole lot more, including questions about pardons, whether Trump can pardon himself, whether we should hold off on charging someone like Louis DeJoy because once somebody's charged, and then they can be pardoned. So all of that information I'll try to get for you. In addition to the likelihood of Trump being able to litigate the results of this election up to the Supreme Court. So I'll be asking Jamie Raskin, who's a congressman from Maryland, all of these questions when I interview him today. And again, check out my channel on Sunday for that interview to be released. And by the way, I should take this moment to do a shameless plug, and that is if you're not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. I put out videos. I think I've done about 900 so far. I put them out typically, generally 1 to 2 videos per day. So again, if you're not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. And one more plug, the sponsor for this is Pop-Up Wi-Fi. It's managed internet. I know if you've watched my earlier streams, I had some issues with my internet. So if you are a streamer, if you're looking for internet that's perfect, that doesn't cut out, check out Pop-Up Wi-Fi. You can hardwire or you can use it as Wi-Fi. I'm hardwired into it right now, and it basically ensures that my connection doesn't get lost. So Pop-Up Wi-Fi, they've saved my ass on numerous occasions. So, and they continue to do it now. So check that out. Okay, so another question that I've gotten is, let's see. How will Fox likely react to a Biden win? Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because we've actually already gotten reporting that top brass at Fox has already notified their staff not to refer to Joe Biden as the president-elect. So, I mean, it starts all over again. It is a network that had spent the last 4 years basically, pretending that Trump is a deity because he's president, even though nothing about him is presidential. And now Joe Biden will have a popular vote mandate, unlike any other president in American history. A popular vote mandate, unlike anything in American history. And already Fox News' top brass is basically notifying their employees not to refer to Joe Biden as the president-elect. So I think that pretty much speaks volumes about how Fox is going to react. It's no surprise. I mean, what we're seeing here is it's the same. They'll continue to, that network will continue to run cover for Trump. That network will continue to act as an arm of the Republican Party. So all I could really say is when you go home to your family's houses for the holidays, a patriotic thing to do might be to open up the parental controls on your parents' TVs and maybe block a certain network. But that's up to you. So, but your country would thank you. So let's see. Let me see if I can answer some more questions. Somebody brought up the point of what happens to the Republicans, the Republican Party, with regard to Trump, and I think you're already seeing it. You're already seeing some degree of distancing themselves from Trump. But with that said, I mean, you have the Republican hopefuls who still know that Trump wields a ton of power in the Republican Party, and basically, he's a kingmaker in the Republican Party. And so we have people like Tom Cotton, who are sure to run in 2024. We have people like Marco Rubio, who are sure to run in 2024. The same, clown car of characters is that we already know is going to try to rise up in the ranks and just, it's a race to the bottom basically with that party. But they're gonna this is what he has turned the party into. I truly don't believe that we're going to see some return to Reagan Republicans or these Mitt Romney Republicans. They are extinct. That faction of the party no longer exists. So, I think it's somewhat naive to think that once Trump is gone, once he's out of office, that we're going to have this return to decency and normalcy. That doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. So with that said, let's see. With that said, let's see if I can answer some more questions. Somebody asked about the deal with the Senate. Oh. Hopefully this connection is a little bit better. We may be dropping some frames. Let's see if this is any better. Hey, Joe. Okay, so apologize for that. A little bit of power went out in my house, so that's the wonders of working from home. Gotta love it. All right, so now going back to the race, let me give a brief update of how everything stands right now. What we're looking at currently is that the race has not been called in any of the states that we're waiting on, but a lot of these states seem just completely, beyond Trump's grasp at this point. So let's start off with Nevada. Biden has a 20,000 vote lead in Nevada. We are looking at, in the last half hour, Biden had an 11,000 vote lead. Let's see. I'm getting some news right now. Okay, so Jeff Van Drew, the Democrat from New Jersey who switched over to be a Republican, has won re-election in New Jersey's 2nd congressional district. So that is not great news. That's the Democrat who expressed his undying support for Donald Trump. He's just very held onto a very slim lead and taken his re-election that way. So that's the deal. That's the newest news out of New Jersey. So going back to Nevada, if you were looking at Nevada last night, you'd have seen that Joe Biden had about an 11,000 vote margin in the state of Nevada that has since expanded to 20,000. The rest of the votes that were waiting to come in Nevada are coming in from Clark County, which is Las Vegas. So they will overwhelmingly favor Joe Biden at this point. We have Nevada pollsters all coming out. Mike Noble, one of the top pollsters coming out of Phoenix, has said that there is no path to victory for Trump in that state. So it's looking more and more like the inevitability will be a Joe Biden victory in the state of Nevada. If that's the case, you have networks like Fox and AP who've already called Arizona for Donald Trump, giving Joe Biden 264 electoral votes. That means that Nevada's 6 remaining electoral votes would put Joe Biden at a point that he needs to be the next president of the United States. That would put him at 270 electoral votes. So let's move over to Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania right now, the margin that we're looking at is an almost 10,000 vote advantage for Joe Biden. An almost 10,000 vote advantage for Joe Biden. And not only that, if you look up in this screen here, you see that most of the state of Pennsylvania is completely red. You'll have, Pittsburgh over on the western side of the state. You have Philadelphia and Allentown on the eastern side of the state, and in the middle of the state, this one little block in the dead center. That's actually where Penn State is. But other than that, the state of Pennsylvania is effectively all red, other than the population centers. Even those states, when they're their mail returns are coming in, even those counties are breaking in Biden's favor. And that's because the election day votes that have already favored Donald Trump have already been counted. And so the votes that are coming in now are the mail ballots that are being counted late after the fact, and those are breaking obviously in Biden's favor. And so even in these small red counties in the center part of the state, in the northern part of the state, that would normally break for Trump, 60 to 40 or 70 to 30, Joe Biden is building on his lead in those counties because the mail ballots, there are still Democrats in those counties, right? But Democrats overwhelmingly voted by mail, and Republicans overwhelmingly showed up to the polls. And so, even in those counties where there's 30% Democrats, well, those 30% of votes are still coming in. So that's what we're looking at in Pennsylvania right now. At this point, it's just really a matter of time before they call it. And as soon as they do call the state of Pennsylvania, that's it. It'll be game over, and Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. Moving on to the state of Georgia. If you were watching last night, you'd have seen that Donald Trump had about a 1,900 vote lead. I went to bed at about midnight, and Biden had cut into his lead, and he had left Trump with a 1,200 vote lead. As we woke up today, now we can see that Joe Biden has about a 1,600 vote advantage in the state of Georgia. You can actually see it on it might be too small, but in any case, they're statistically tied, but Joe Biden is holding on to a 1,600 vote lead. The benefit being that there are about 4,000 votes left to be counted in the state of Georgia, and they're coming from Gwinnett County, which is a suburb of Atlanta. So that is good news for Joe Biden because those votes are going to break overwhelmingly in his favor. So again, I'm going to go into the Georgia Senate race, but that's what we're looking at in Georgia. One more state that I really quickly want to focus on is Arizona. Arizona had been called for Joe Biden with regard to Fox News and the AP. NBC hadn't yet called Arizona for Joe Biden, but Fox has. And now we're still waiting for more votes to come in from Maricopa County, which is the Phoenix area of the state. And they've been basically, if Donald Trump wants to stand a chance in the state of Arizona, he needed to have been taking about 60% of the votes that were coming in. And for a while last night, every time we'd get a vote dump, they would break about 59 to 60%. So he was getting exactly the margins he needed to stay competitive in that state. And what we've seen now is that as these vote dumps continue to come in, we're seeing that Donald Trump is not hitting the margins he needs to be able to overtake Joe Biden. He's hitting margins of about 51.5%, whereas he needs to be hitting 60%. So it's looking more and more like Donald Trump does not have enough gas in his tank to be able to overtake Joe Biden in the state of Arizona. That's why Fox has refused to rescind its call for that state in Joe Biden's column. So what that does is basically if you're following Fox's electoral vote counter, if you're following their counter is at about 264 electoral votes. So the state of Nevada, with its 6 electoral votes, would be enough to put Joe Biden into the lead and basically to be the next president of the United States, which is good news. So with that said, let's talk about the Senate a little bit. And the deal with the Senate is that if you're looking in a state like Georgia, there are basically 4 races to go. There is the race of Al Gross in Alaska, which we won't hear about for a few days as they continue to count ballots that are coming in. There's the race for North Carolina with Cal Cunningham and Tom Tillis. And right now, Tom Tillis holds about a 1.5 to 2 point lead over Cal Cunningham in that state. But the story really here is that we have 2 runoffs that are likely happening in the state of Georgia. And why that's important is because Georgia is now a state that we're seeing with our own eyes, based on these presidential results, that Democrats can not only compete in, but that we're able to win statewide in. So now, on January 5th, we're going to have the races between Warnock and also the race between John Ossoff and David Perdue, and that will determine control of the United States Senate. And when I say control, I'm saying even if we lose Al Gross in Alaska, even if we lose Cal Cunningham in North Carolina, we still have the chance to win both of these Georgia races and create a 50-50 Senate. And why that would be good for us is because in that case, when Joe Biden takes the White House, Kamala Harris would act as VP, and so she would cast tie-breaking votes in a 50-50 split Senate. So really what we need to hit is just that 50-50 mark in the Senate. And, having these races coming up in a state like Georgia not only kind of gives us the chance to hit or redo, right? Because if as opposed to losing the Senate outright and basically sending Joe Biden into office with a Senate that's run by Mitch McConnell, wherein he would obstruct his entire agenda. I mean, we were talking about expanding the court. That's not going to happen with a Republican Senate. We're talking about climate change legislation. That's not going to happen with a Republican Senate. We're talking about voting rights legislation. That wouldn't happen with the Republican Senate. These are all, especially H.R. 1, the most important priority for the House, voting rights reform and making Election Day a national holiday and protecting from foreign interference. Basically, all of these tools that Republicans use to entrench their own power, their own minority rule, and that's kind of sickened democracy. Those reforms are all dependent on what we have in H.R. 1. That's already languishing on Mitch McConnell's desk, and it's been languishing on Mitch McConnell's desk since that legislation was passed, since that bill was passed at the very beginning of this latest Congress. So with that said, that makes the upcoming Senate runoffs all the more important. Those will take place in Georgia on January 5th, and kind of what that will allow us to do as Americans is whereas our attention was focused all over the country, it was focused on North Carolina and Maine and Florida and Texas and Iowa, and we have races in New Jersey and Oklahoma and California. What that will allow us to do now is just pinpoint our attention onto one state, and that's the state of Georgia. That is a state that's trending blue. That is a state that Joe Biden is showing us right now that Democrats are capable of winning in. So all signs point really well for Democrats and for these Senate races that are coming up. We also have groups like Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight, which has registered 800,000 Georgians. And the good news is that with these Senate runoffs, we're going to have the opportunity to continue registering people up until a new deadline of December 5th. So that'll be 1 month before the January 5th runoff election. So between now and December 5th, we basically have a full month to just go all out to register any new voters there. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the regular Democratic voters. What this means, because the fate of the Senate relies on what happens in the state of Georgia. If your issue is climate change, maybe you're not political, but your issue is climate change. Maybe you're just a young person and you don't know about politics, or you haven't voted, or you don't know who any of these politicians are. If your thing is climate change, well, just know that the future of climate change rests with the fact that we'll be able to control a Senate. If your thing is voting rights, if if you don't even participate in the political system because you believe that it's so, that it disenfranchises maybe people of color or young people or Democrats as a whole. Well, now is your chance to do that and to vote in a state like Georgia, where you can basically, you have so much outsized power now, because you not only control the fate of these Senate races in that state, but you control the fate of the Senate and the future of this country's, voting apparatus. You control the future of the planet. Where goes the United States, goes the rest of the world, especially with regard to climate change. And this is not something that we can kick the can a few years down the road. Now, in the event, I just do want to talk about what happens in the event that we don't take the Senate. And look, we have, I'm certain, beyond certain, that McConnell would obstruct Joe Biden's agenda. We would likely do whatever we could by executive order, which obviously isn't going to be that much, especially when what we're looking for right now is sweeping reforms, whether it comes to climate change, whether it comes to voting rights, whether it comes to making sure to protect a woman's right to choose what she does with her own body, whether it comes to protecting LGBT Americans who, now we have a Supreme Court that will be hostile to Roe and to Obergefell, which is the case that that legalized gay marriage in this country. So what we could do, we do have a more favorable map coming up in 2022, but we have races coming up in Pennsylvania, which obviously Democrats are strongly favored in a place like Pennsylvania. We have races coming up in a place like Wisconsin. And obviously, if you've seen what just happened in Wisconsin, it's again favorable to Democrats. But I don't think our goal here should be to wait until 2022. We have a golden opportunity right now in a state like Georgia, in a state that is trending blue, in a state that has just shown the entire nation that it's willing to come out and vote once. So I think what you're going to see over the next 60 days really is an all-out effort by everybody in the Democratic Party, everybody that fought for these races, these Senate races in Maine, in Arizona, in Michigan with Gary Peters, these races in Texas, in Iowa, in all over the country, and in Georgia themselves, and in North Carolina. Everybody's going to focus their attention on Georgia, and that's exactly where their attention should be focused, because we, again, like I said, we have a golden opportunity to basically not only flip 2 Senate seats in this state, but flip the control of the United States Senate and basically be able to enact the agenda that the American people have given Joe Biden a mandate to be able to enact. And so this election is beyond important, but keep an eye out for Georgia. I think, it's not over. It's not over yet. It looks like Georgia has officially declared a recount because it's in recount territory. I do want to give one indication of how recounts typically go. So if you look at a state like Wisconsin, for example, Wisconsin's had 2 recounts in the last decade. And what those recounts have looked like were in 2011, there was a recount for the Supreme Court race there. And that ended up creating a net difference of about 300 votes. In 2016, Jill Stein called for a recount in the presidential contest, and that created, I believe, a net difference of 131 votes. So these recounts aren't flipping elections. They're usually just, maybe a few hundred votes will be different. But, in a state like Georgia right now, which as of right this moment, let's pull up the margin in Georgia. As of right this moment, Georgia's looking at a 1,600 vote lead. I believe they have about 4,000 votes left to be counted, as well as absentee and military ballots. 5,000 left to be counted. And then, and those votes are coming overwhelmingly from Atlanta and Savannah regions. So these are Democratic strongholds. So Joe Biden is only going to increase his lead. I wouldn't be surprised if he came out of this race with a several thousand vote lead. And again, if a state like Wisconsin is any indication, you'll have a few hundred vote difference, but generally it's not going to be enough to swing an election. So we'll see what happens as Georgia as Georgia kind of delves into this recount territory right now. And let's see. I'm trying to get some more information. If you have questions, you can throw questions. You can throw questions in the comment section, and I'll try to read them. How did Susan Collins keep her seat? Look, I think there was a major issue with polling in this country. I mean, Susan Collins hadn't led in any poll. She was showing to be Sarah Gideon was showing to be in the lead by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points. I don't think Susan Collins has led in a poll for months. I think since June. And the fact that she won that race pretty handily shows that there's some reckoning that we have to do in this country with regard to our polling. But we'll see how that plays out in the coming days and weeks. I think another thing too is, look, you have Trump supporters who are fundamentally who have been groomed to fundamentally distrust the media. And so when somebody that's part of, the media infrastructure, like pollsters calls and says, well, who do you want to vote for? They're not going to trust them. because the whole thing is rigged as far as Trump is concerned. So I wouldn't be surprised if no Trump supporters, after having been groomed to not trust anybody, in legacy media, in the whole bureaucratic landscape of the media ecosystem, to not trust any of them. And so, not answer their phone, not tell them who they're voting for, or lie, or whatever it is. There's obviously been a breakdown. And I think what we're seeing is that while in certain places we have been able to thank you. In certain places we have been able to see correct margins. Generally, there was a massive breakdown in terms of what we were able to glean from polling in this election cycle. So how would I respond to those who say that a national popular vote would hinder Midwest Republican representation and make it unfair for them? I've been hearing that argument a lot. Well, look, I mean, the same argument can be said for right now anybody who is not a Midwest Republican is not represented in this country. And the fact is, if we're supposed to live in this supposed beacon of democracy, the United States of America, and yet you can win a presidential election by 3 million votes and not become president, well, what does that say about our democracy? That isn't, what we have right now is minority rule in this country. We have a Senate that's led by Republicans that represent 15 million fewer Americans than their Republican counterparts. We now have the last 7 out of 8 presidential elections, the popular vote went for a Democrat. So something is fundamentally wrong with our system in this country. And the issue, I think, here is to be careful to frame it in such a way that, like, well, what would happen if we took some power away from these people who have outsized power? And that's the thing. I mean, they have outsized power right now, and it is diluting the power of someone who is just as American as a Midwest Republican. Just because you live in a state like California, which is dark blue, doesn't mean you're less American than somebody who just happens to live in, past an arbitrary line of a state. We're just as American, but somehow, Californians' votes, for example, or blue states' votes are just completely diluted, while other states like, especially Rust Belt states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, are just completely outside. So I think what we need is to just have a fair system, and it'll bring a lot of people into the political process. People say, like, oh, I live in a red state, that doesn't matter for me to vote, or I live in a blue state, it doesn't matter for me to vote. Imagine all of those Republicans that are disenfranchised in a state like California because California is so blue. I mean, there are people that stand to benefit when democracy is more healthy. I don't think we have to worry about certain people in one subset of the country who might lose some of their power, because that power right now is ill-gotten. It's outsized, and so I think that we really need to bring forward some reforms in our democracy. So let's see, I'll answer some more questions. Did we win the House? Yes, we have won the House. We'll likely lose maybe 10 or 11 seats, possibly more, possibly less in the House. But regardless of what happens, Democrats will retain control of the House. Will Trump run again in 2024? It's definitely a possibility. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Because he doesn't like losing, and he's also made this election kind of, he's obviously doing his best to shoehorn through this narrative that the election was stolen from him. So I think what he's going to want to do is to try to use that to try to act as a springboard to run again in 2024. Obviously, that's just conjecture. I have no clue what he's going to do. I don't even know if he's going to concede right now. So he might concede, although it's unlikely. He might spend the next 4 years claiming that it was rigged against him, because that's the narrative that he had preset for himself, because he's too insecure and petty to actually be able to take that hit to his ego. So what he would rather do than just acknowledge that he's lost, like every other president before him, is pretend that there's fraud in Michigan, there's fraud in Pennsylvania, there's fraud in Germany, there's fraud in Nevada. Here's the thing. If Trump thinks that there's some nationwide fraud happening, what that would mean is that, or that Democrats have rigged the system. What that would mean is that Democrats rigged it so that we could lose 10 seats in the House, so that we could lose our hopeful control of the Senate. We can lose races like Sarah Gideon. We could be down in North Carolina in that Senate race. We can lose the Senate race in Iowa. We can lose the Senate race in Texas, lose all of these Senate races. We've rigged the entire election so that we don't have control of government, and yet allowed Trump to lose as well. So it doesn't make any sense, because if we had rigged it, like he's saying that we rigged it, don't you think we would have actually bothered to give ourselves control of any of these races? So that's the craziest part. And that's the part that I think hurts him the most, is that this isn't about the election being rigged against Republicans, because if it was rigged against Republicans, Democrats would have a Senate seat in Iowa. We would have a Senate seat in North Carolina right now. We would have a Senate seat in Texas. We would have a Senate seat in Maine. But we don't. So there was no rigging that happened. What this is not a rigged system against Republicans. It is a repudiation of Trump himself. Republicans overperformed in this election. They took seats in the House. They held on to seats that they were favored to lose in the Senate. Who lost in this election, who lost states that he'd won in 2016, is Donald Trump. That's the person who was repudiated, and that's the person that's the part that's going to hurt him the most, is because his party actually fared better than he himself did. This was not a referendum on the Republican Party, although I believe that it should have been. It's a referendum on Trump. It was a repudiation of Trump himself. He's going to lose by about 5 million votes when this thing is all said and done. So that's going to be what's most difficult for him to handle, in my opinion. And so that's why he'll continue to claim that it's rigged, because he takes this as a personal affront, as he should, because it was a personal repudiation of him and not the rest of his party. So I don't necessarily think that Donald Trump is going to be conceding any race anytime soon. I think he's going to go down in flames and just try to convince everybody that it's rigged, even though the lawsuits that he's brought up so far have just served as proof that they have no claims of it being rigged. There were 3 lawsuits that they brought up so far. They had their first lawsuit in Georgia yesterday, where the issue at hand was that the Trump campaign was saying that 53 votes came in after the deadline, and the judge asked for evidence that they came in after the deadline. The Trump campaign said, "We have none," and the judge said, "Okay, case dismissed." And that was the first one. The next one was in Michigan, where they wanted voting to stop while they let all their vigilante observers pour into the counting rooms. And the judge said, "Well, is there already somebody from the Trump campaign in these rooms where they're counting the votes?" And the Trump campaign said, "Well, yeah, there is." And the judge said, "Then what are we doing here?" And so that case was dismissed. Then there was another lawsuit that came about in Philadelphia, and it was the same thing. They wanted to stop the vote so that they could let their poll watchers come in, but there's already Republicans and Democrats watching these votes being counted, and they're designated by the local officials there, and so they don't need like MAGA Margaret coming in with her American flag hat and her MAGA hat to make sure that everything's going smoothly. There are people whose job it is to do this, and they have Republicans represented. And so that lawsuit was thrown out. So, I know that Trump wants to, he thinks he's going to steal this in the courts, and he thinks he's going to have his precious Supreme Court justices litigate his path to victory. But what we're seeing right now so far are these pathetic little lawsuits that are coming forward that are being swatted down. I mean, 53 votes in Georgia. That's what you think this massive election fraud is coming down to? 53 votes in Georgia, not letting your poll observers come within 6 feet in Michigan and Pennsylvania. It's a joke, really. So I'm going to have an interview with Congressman Jamie Raskin. That will be out on Sunday. And I'm going to ask him all of these questions about litigation and what he'll actually be able to do with regard to the Supreme Court. Let's see if we have any updates really quick. Okay, it looks like Joe Biden extended his lead in Pennsylvania. Joe Biden's lead is now 12,000 votes in the state of Pennsylvania. And by the way, that margin is going to continue to go up in Pennsylvania because the votes that are outstanding still are mail ballots. And mail ballots are not only breaking overwhelmingly in Biden's favor, but a lot of these ballots are coming from Philadelphia now. And so they're not only breaking in Biden's favor, but they're breaking in his favor by a margin of like 90-10. So that's something to keep in mind as we continue to watch Joe Biden run away with the lead in Pennsylvania. They've not yet called this race, but it looks like we're going to get an update from Philadelphia with another 2,000 to 3,000 votes this afternoon. And then there are going to be 40,000 more votes, and that could take a few more days. But that might not mean that would prevent them from calling that race. It depends how big and commanding Joe Biden's lead is in Pennsylvania. So that's the update in Pennsylvania. We've just had another vote dump in Pennsylvania. Joe Biden has extended his lead up to over 12,000 votes in that state. And again, it will continue to widen as those votes continue to come in because what they're counting now is mail ballots. So anyway, back to litigation. I'll be speaking with Jamie Raskin, who's a congressman from Maryland. I'll ask him all about, the possibility of Joe Biden, of Donald Trump being able to like bring any cases to the Supreme Court. I'll ask him like what the likelihood of being able to try to litigate away this election is. I'm going to ask him about pardons. I know a lot of people have questions about self-pardons. So on Sunday, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. And on Sunday, I'm going to release that video. So with my interview with Jamie Raskin. So any questions you have about the Supreme Court, any questions you have about the Supreme Court, about Trump trying to steal the election, about him trying to pardon himself, pardon others, pardon Louis DeJoy. I'm going to get all those questions answered by Jamie Raskin, congressman. He is one of the smartest people I've ever spoken with. He's a constitutional lawyer and a professor from American University prior to becoming a congressman. So if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, and we'll go into those questions shortly after that. Let's see if I can answer some more questions in the meantime. If Trump runs again, do I think Republicans will let him back into their party? I believe he's held a negative impact on the party. Time will tell. The fact is that Trump has quite the command over the GOP right now. So it is, there's really nobody that's more powerful than Trump in the Republican Party. We can kid ourselves into thinking that there's still these Reagan Republicans or these Mitt Romney Republicans, but they're non-existent. Those people don't exist anymore. The Mitt Romney is an exception, not the rule. So I think what we've seen is the Trumpification of the Republican Party. This is what that party is going to be moving forward. And yes, it is all the more dangerous because of it. And hopefully all of the people who participated in this election will continue to recognize what happens when we become complacent in this country, because we've kind of like opened the door for an authoritarian style ruler to come in and disregard norms and break down our institutions and use the levers of the government against the American people, against blue states. You have a president of the United States tear gassing his own citizens, a president of the United States who refused to acknowledge a pandemic that came in that would ultimately kill 250,000 Americans, and drop the unemployment rate down to 8% and leave us with 11 million jobs lost. This is an unmitigated failure, and the fact that he can still come around for this latest election and get more votes than any other person in American history besides the person he's running against in this election goes to show that this is a Republican Party that still largely stands behind him, even after all of these failures, even after watching the fourth biggest mass casualty event in American history take place and rewarding him for that. I mean, it blows my mind, and I'm sure if you're watching this channel, it blows your mind too. But what that means is that we just have to continue to fight, and it's not the kind of thing where we'll be able to say like, okay, politics doesn't impact me anymore, because all it takes is 4 years for Republicans to come back into power again if Joe Biden were to win this election, and the same thing that happened in 2016 can happen in 2024. And of course, you're going to have largely the same Senate who's going to do the same thing and continue to push their agenda of science denialism, of taking rights away from women who are looking to, have agency over their own body, and suppressing voting rights for Americans who don't look like them or who don't vote the way that their party votes. So I don't think the answer here is complacency. I think it's an effort to enact our agenda, which is, to transition to a fully renewable economy and to push climate change legislation, and to try to make voting easier and more effective for people, and to protect women's rights, and to protect LGBT rights, and to make, to push forward justice and policing and all of these things. But again, the answer here is not a complacency. The answer is absolutely to redouble our efforts. Just grab a quick drink. All right. Let's see if we have any updates from our numbers. So these numbers look largely unchanged. If you're just tuning in, let's do a quick rundown of what we're looking at. So what we're looking at is, in the state of Pennsylvania, Joe Biden has a 12,000 vote lead. That lead is only going to grow because those votes are coming in not only from mail ballots, which already overwhelmingly favor Joe Biden, but they're coming in from Philadelphia, which are breaking in Biden's favor between 85 and 90%. So as they continue to count these outstanding ballots, I believe there are 40,000 ballots still coming just from Philadelphia alone. Those will continue to grow Joe Biden's lead. At this point, the inevitability is them calling Pennsylvania, and once they do, Joe Biden will be the president-elect of the United States. Looking forward to Nevada, Joe Biden has a 20,000 vote lead. If you tuned in earlier this morning, you'd have seen that Joe Biden had like a 12,000 vote lead. The latest vote dump favored Biden 2-1 because, again, these votes are coming in from Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is located. That is a Democratic stronghold in the state. So Joe Biden's lead will continue to grow in Nevada as well. I don't see any planet on which Donald Trump is able to catch Joe Biden in Nevada or Pennsylvania for that matter. Moving forward to Georgia, Biden's currently holding on to a 1,561 vote lead. The remaining ballots that have to come in Georgia, let's see how many there are. I believe there are 5,000 votes expected to come in later today in terms of the total votes that we're waiting for in Georgia. That might be the bulk of it. We might be waiting for about 4,000 or 5,000 more votes, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just check one more time. I'll get the exact number of votes, but for right now, we know that the bulk of those votes are coming from Gwinnett County, which is a suburb of Atlanta. They're also coming from Savannah, Georgia. So again, Democratic stronghold in the state. They will continue to widen Joe Biden's lead. New York Times Needle has had Georgia in Biden's corner for days now, and Georgia has officially gone into recount territory. So I believe there will be a recount in Georgia. But if you look at the history of recounts in recent elections, there'll be the difference. It'll be the difference of hundreds of votes. But in this situation, we're already looking into a lead of thousands of votes. So I wouldn't get too worried about a recount if you're hoping for a Joe Biden victory. And finally, the state of Arizona. Biden is hanging on to a 43,000 vote lead. That lead is getting cut into by Donald Trump. But what Donald Trump needs to do if he wants any chance of overtaking Arizona is he needs to be winning the remaining votes by a margin of 60%. And right now he's not. The last batch of votes that came in for Arizona is falling in Trump's favor by about 51%, 52%. So if he can't hit that margin of 60%, there's no chance that he'll overtake Joe Biden in a state like Arizona. Keep in mind, too, that Fox and the AP, I believe, have already called Arizona for Joe Biden. So, and they haven't rescinded those calls. So I believe that the writing on the wall for a state like Arizona is that it's in Joe Biden's corner. So all four of those states, we're waiting on the final calls for these states. I think the reason that they're holding off on calling them is just because Trump is already claiming that the whole thing is rigged against him. And so if people start calling elections while there are still votes outstanding, it just gives him more fodder to try and undermine trust in this election. So I think what he's just trying to do is just what the networks are trying to do, rather, is just to make sure that there's that these calls are airtight and there's no room for Donald Trump to be able to sow any more doubt or undermine this election more than he already has. So that's where we're at right now. Let's see if I can answer some questions. Some people have been asking about Alaska and North Carolina. So the deal with those states is that we likely won't have any answers for a few days as they continue to count votes. So I know that they're waiting for ballots to come in. They have, I want to say in North Carolina possibly until the 12th. So anyway, we're not going to get a final answer on that Arizona Senate race on that North Carolina or Alaska Senate races or presidential races for a few days likely still. What do I think the possibility of Trump facing federal charges is once he leaves office? I think the possibility is good. I know that the SDNY is already looking in. I mean, look, Trump's own Justice Department successfully argued that Michael Cohen should be in prison, and they won. And the unindicted co-conspirator in that case that Donald Trump's own DOJ argued was Trump. So there really isn't any argument why Trump shouldn't also be held accountable if the person who was a co-conspirator in a crime that Michael Cohen went to prison for in that same case was Donald Trump. So do I think that Trump has, legal exposure? Absolutely. And what I hope happens is that, nobody lets him off the hook for what he's done. There's possible tax fraud that's occurred. There's possible bank fraud that's occurred. I know that there's a whole situation with a Deutsche Bank and who, that the New York Times broke that will need looking into. There are still campaign finance violations that are unresolved. There are, a number of issues that Trump has legal exposure with. And so, what I think we'll see in the coming, months is hopefully some accountability for people like not only Donald Trump, but someone like Louis DeJoy, who we've seen in the final days leading up to this election that Louis DeJoy is perfectly content to be able to sabotage our postal service and the return rates in big cities in swing states have fallen in the days prior to the election. So the successful return rates for the mail and by association ballots has fallen. It's actually gotten worse in just the days leading up to the election when we needed those systems fortified. And so I think what we'll see is that Louis DeJoy really helped Trump orchestrate the scheme that he was trying to orchestrate. And, now we have judges, obviously federal judges coming in and demanding sweeps of postal facilities. But the fact remains that while these systems, the USPS systems, were supposed to be shored up, Louis DeJoy basically did what he could to ensure that they wouldn't be. And so, if there's one administration official, if there's one official that I think deserves to face prosecution more than anybody, it is Louis DeJoy. Right now on the screen, you're going to see that Joe Biden has about almost a 74 million votes to Donald Trump's 69. I mean, we're going to see right now a 5 million vote margin between Trump and Biden, making Trump a one-term president who will have lost the popular vote two times since becoming president. So let's see if I can answer some more questions. Yeah, I do want to point out one thing. Somebody did mention this. One instance of fraud that's happening, and that's that we just found out from the Trump campaign that they are calling volunteers in Pennsylvania to get people who haven't yet dropped their absentee ballots off to drop them off 3 days after an election, which is illegal, by the way. I mean, you talk about a campaign that is just wholly predicated on pretending that there's rife that the Democratic Party is rife with fraud, and there are emails that have gone out saying if you haven't yet returned your absentee ballots, make sure you do that right away, which is illegal, and it's happening, and they have proof of it. So it's something we've seen over the last 4 years is that this entire administration is just an ongoing clinic in projection. And so when they say that Democrats are engaging in fraudulent behavior, you don't have to look much further than the very people who are saying it, because right there, in an email, because that's how smart they are. They have email proof of them emailing volunteers out in Pennsylvania and demanding that they reach out to people who haven't yet submitted their absentee ballots for Trump, and to get them in. So and then of course Bill Barr, but that is and I could do an entire hour show on that, and I don't think we need to. So let's see. I hope my volume didn't cut out. I hope that everybody can hear me okay. So let's see. I think what I'm going to do right now, I'd also ask right now, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. I do 1, 2, 3 videos a day. So if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, I'd really appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. That's it. You don't have to pay anything. Everything's all free. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I think what I'm going to do right now is while we wait for more results to come in, I'm going to end the stream, and I will check back in later as soon as we have something. So hopefully the next time you see me, the next time I go live, tune in, hit the bell so that you get notifications for when I go live, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about the fact that we have Joe Biden as the president-elect of the United States. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll check back in a little while later.